So welcome everyone to our April Operations Committee meeting. We're excited to have you all. Today's agenda, we will talk through the happenings at FHIR that recently took place, and as well as discuss Rachel's position at Vulcan. And then we'll get into project updates, talk through the different releases and timelines for different projects, UDP, SOA, APIX, and FHIR to OMOP. And we will get additional updates from Filippo. And then Hugh will talk through the plans for UDP for the May Connectathon and the ballot. And then we'll open it up for questions. So with that, I will pass it on. I think the next slide will introduce the FHIR topic and pass it on to Lisa.
Thanks, Miriam. Thanks very much. Filippo, great, thank you. So just giving you a bit of a summary about how FHIR went. There's a whole collection of photographs here showing our activity. We ran, as many of you know, a pavilion with content over 2 days. It was action-packed. We had some great presentations describing our projects, describing the VIB, taking a look at how we work. We had a great debate. There's a picture up there in the right-hand corner, a debate session looking at how we work with CDISC and Transcelerate and how we all collaborate and how all that works. We were also really lucky to do a roundtable session, which was quite intimate with some real key figures. And from that, we actually created a number of articles, which we will share with you, more on that to come. But the sessions were really great. We made some new connections. And as a result, I've certainly seen new sign-ups coming in for the project. So we got the Vulcan name out there wide and made some really great new connections. If you weren't at FHIR and you missed the sessions, we are going to make, we're going to do a Missed Us at FHIR kind of campaign where we will share all of the presentation decks with you and those articles that I mentioned. So look out for that coming, be a newsletter coming hopefully next week, so you can take a look at what took place and what happened. And we've got some audio transcript from that round table where we're planning on sharing a number of podcasts so you can actually hear what was said there and then. So that's kind of the roundup on FHIR. I talked about those articles, and if we can just move on to the next slide. I wanted to share some of those key takeaways that came out from those sessions, and the articles that we've created are very much around this, but these were the key themes coming out. So interoperability is no longer the challenge, application, understanding and alignment are. A lot of conversation came up with the word interoperability, and different people interpret that in completely different ways. So having some common understanding about what the word means and making sure that we're on the same page was really important. The next point, patient recruitment remains the single biggest constraint on clinical research. And it was found that's where Vulcan's work can have the greatest real world impact. So more on that one to come. And then a lot of conversation around change happening through the speed of what we do. Sometimes we wait for things to be perfect, and maybe we shouldn't do that. And it's the early movers in this community that are already surfacing problems on how we can solve that. And I know we've got the Connectathon coming up as well. The organisations shaping outcomes are those already in the room, which is exactly why Vulcan exists. And there was a real big call out to expand that Vulcan community so we have more of the right people around the table, particularly those technology enablers, so the pharma companies can actually have some real conversations with them. But there were some great conversations that have, as I've said, helped shape a number of articles. But what the conversations also helped shape were some new kind of things and new positioning that you'll see on the website coming soon. We realise that our community is vast, and you know it's that that whole continuum that we look after, and you all join for different reasons, and we want to make Vulcan personalised for what it is that you do. So they're the key takeaways from FHIR's. Our focus now when it comes to events is the May Connectathon, and I know that we're going to be talking about that a bit later. Any questions regarding FHIR's, then do let me know. But we will move on. We were lucky enough to talk to Rachel Dunscombe from HL7. She wasn't able to come to FHIR's, but what she did do was record a video for us. And I felt that it was really important that you should watch this. So hopefully we can see the audio when we press play. I'm going to leave it to whoever's got control to make that happen.
Hello, Rachel Dunscombe here, CEO of HL7 International. And thank you for inviting me to speak virtually at the Vulcan FHIR Forge Pavilion. Sorry that I couldn't be with you in person. I'd like to reflect on my own personal journey. Now, I worked with Data for Life, which was an initiative between life sciences, universities and health systems, which actually looked at the numbers of lives saved and improved as we connected data. That was hugely impactful for me. And recently I've been tracking through the Vulcan journey because I have worked on real world evidence, Salford Long study, and I know how hard a lift it is to actually get these systems in place, the cost and the effort, especially if there are not standards for us to adhere to. Now, hospitals should not have data that is unavailable for research where consented. And in the future, we need to change that. And Vulcan is a huge part of our actual efforts within HL7 to do it. We also have a documentation tax where it takes our people far too long to actually find the right information. Researchers having to pull together spreadsheets and very difficult sort of forensic jobs to do on finding information. Vulcan comes in here to actually bridge between all of the parties, be it the hospital, the lab, the researchers, and the life sciences company. For too long, we've treated clinical care and research as two different worlds. And for a patient, it's just one record, and they expect it to be available where they want it to be available. And that once only principle is what I like. The fact that data can be collected once and used many times. It's a liquid asset that can go into the research pipeline. We need to stop asking doctors to be data entry clerks. We need to get our data house in order so the information is correct and it's born digital and ready to be used in all care settings. Now, I know you've been doing fantastic work with the Foundry, and it's great to see that you're using that as a test bed to actually test the ideas that you've got and make sure that everything is right before we put this in the real world or get a hospital or a researcher to implement the systems. For me, actually seeing the partnerships that you have created with Odessi and CDISC are very exciting. Between us, with the standards bodies that give the end-to-end pipeline of data that is needed for research and safety. And I'm particularly happy to see that the adverse events work has been undertaken. For me, as a former CIO of health systems, that is hugely impactful. Vulcan is all about people. We've got over 250 participants and 50 members. And they come from pharma, academia, life sciences, research backgrounds. It's amazing to see this collaboration. This is what HL7 is about today and for the future. And let's make research journey as seamless as possible. Let's make it something where we can actually further research faster together. I'm incredibly excited to see what you've built. I'm incredibly grateful for all of the hard work that you've done. I look forward to a future where we've got community-driven research and where every care setting can participate. I hope you enjoyed the event. I'm looking very much forward to working with the Vulcan Accelerator. I'll be joining their board next week to talk further with them. And from me to everyone involved in the programme, thank you very much for everything you've done.
As Rachel says, we will have her joining one of the operations meetings very, very soon. She's travelling a lot at the moment, but we're looking forward to having her in person. But hopefully that gives you some kind of feel as to how important she sees us as a community. And that's me done. So I'm going to hand back over.
I believe in this section, both Mike and Miriam had some comments about FHIR releases. I've added a slide that shows our projects, and I've listed what the FHIR release they are in at the moment. As you can see, we have adverse events that have both release 4 and release 5, and all the other 7 projects are listed under. They're all in alphabetical order. Mike, if you're here, if you want to start the conversation about the releases. And
I'm not sure if I see him in the list, but when we first started Vulcan, R4 was the latest release, and then R5 happened, and then we quickly decided to, HL7 as a whole decided to move on to R6, which will be coming out soon. But institutions have had the option to transition as they saw fit during their own timelines. And so we wanted to get a sense of what releases your institutions are on, if you are currently on R4 and plan to implement R5, or skip R5 and go straight to R6 and just wait it out until we get to that normative standard, and then how that affects the projects that we currently have, whether or not we need to do any backports if R5 is, for those that don't have an R5 version or an R4 version, or if we move forward with just R6. And that would help us with future projects as well as to what versions of the FHIR release they need to be focused on in order for us to have the biggest opportunity or the best opportunity for sites and institutions to participate and implement the different builds. So I want to pause. Filippo, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, it's also from our project leads. It'll be good to hear from you. I noticed Jeff is here from Schedule of Activities, and you do have a release 4, which is the previous version, and now you're going with release 6. I probably know the answer to the question why we went to R6, because you're kind of following in the steps of UDP. Is there any other reasoning, Jeff, that make you, for example, skip R5 and decide to go with R6? I don't know if there's some other information you can share from perhaps feedback you received from the community or personal understanding of the realm of FHIR releases.
I would like to say that we probably are walking the same path as UDP rather than following in the steps of it. But yeah, there's obviously strong a sympathetic relationship between UDP and SOA, insofar as if you're looking at a protocol, there needs to be effectively a schedule of activities in it. So we needed to make sure that what we released could be kind of embraced or enveloped by UDP to make sure that the whatever needs to be communicated is communicated. We are aware of implementers on R4 who previously they previously fed back to us like requirements that went into a lot of what is part of release 2. I've reached out, I've sent a couple of messages to the team who certainly fed back. I haven't had any response as yet to say that they need it to be backported to R4. We certainly could do that if needs be. The sort of the primary driver for R6 for V2 was to be available to kind of be released in concert with UDP.
Or other project co-leads to perhaps that are part of the call. Sorry, I can't see everybody. If you'd like to speak up about, why you decided to go for that FHIR release. I know here you just see you there.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about UDP, because we took a very conscious decision to go for R6, and the biggest driver for that was the development work that's gone on in the research study resource. That's changed significantly over the last 2 years, 3 years. It has some attributes which have changed their name. The function is very broadly similar, but the name has changed. Some of the terminology constraints have changed, and there are new attributes in there that just weren't in there before. Some of those attributes we needed to make use of. Some of the things that go on within the group resource also have changed as you go into R6, and are things that we need to make use of for eligibility criteria. So R6 fits much better with the objectives of representing a protocol as a whole. The counter argument always was, well, nobody's implemented R6 yet, and it won't be out for a while, so you'll be better off doing R4 and creating some extensions. That's true. We could go down that route. We could have gone down that route, I should say. But if you go that way, you end up creating extensions for something which is, to some extent, a little bit of a moving target still. You hope that it's not particularly going to move very much, but I think it's far better to work it the other way around, which is to start from R6 and then backfill the things that you need for people who are constrained to use either R4 or R5. And then when you look at the question of, well, who's going to be using R4 or R5 for what UDP is doing, the answer is that from a regulator perspective, they can move to R6 relatively easily. They don't have a great established set of implementations that are based around R4 or even R5. So adopting R6 is a good future development and a fairly straightforward one for them. That's not quite the same when you start to look at linking in an EHR if you want to do some checking on whether variables are going to be available, or you want to do something with exclusion criteria. But it's still not possible. So the balance was that it was easier to go with R6 and then to provide the backports to R5 and to R4 as and when they are required. So that's why we've ended up with R6. The rationale for other systems is probably going to be different. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all for this question.
So for EPI, the reason why we chose R5 is at the time we needed the elements that are in R5. So there was updates, regulatory updates, like medicinal product updates, like pretty significant updates in R5 that made it easy to do things like product information, CMC, response to questions. So a whole host of regulatory use cases are based on that product model. So that's how it started with R5, plus EMA was already working on R5. So we had an agreement with EMA that we'd keep in sync with each other. And so that's how EPI started on R5. And then since I'm the lead on all these other projects for Apex, the response to question, or not this response to questions is at Vulcan, but there's response to questions, there's a CMC use case, there's a couple other projects under BR&R. So the idea was to say, well, all these regulatory use cases are clustered together, keep them on R5 so that they can move together as R5. And then when the vendors develop tools for regulatory use cases, they would develop tools against a common foundation. So meaning all these regulatory use cases would be R5, all the tools could move together and support them as a group under R5. So that's the rationale behind using R5 for Apex, EPI, and then a bunch of BR and R stuff.
Anybody, Craig, has brought up the need or maybe desire to have something in R6. I know one of the common arguments is that, for somebody who's in R4 and they have to do an upgrade, right? They're like, well, if R6 is available, why upgrade to R5 and not to R6 directly?
So in the regulatory use case, no. Because in healthcare, yes, that scenario applies, but from a regulatory standpoint, we have not reached critical mass with FHIR. So if, for example, like Jordan has already implemented EPI, EMA is well on their way. They've released their roadmap, and some of the Asian regulators are implementing it as well. So they're all kind of developing it and in the early phases of development. So no one has reached critical mass yet. So if we want to say, for example, everyone move up to R6 all together, all at once, and then as a global collective, everyone in the regulatory space is going to implement FHIR and we're all going to use R6. We could do that because no one's hit critical mass. No one's really rolled out any expensive implementations that would, break the world kind of situation. So we could keep going with R5 and everyone would be fine. Or if there was a reason to go to R6, we could. But that window is closing. Like the longer we wait, then the more painful it gets. So if we had a reason, if we could make a business case and say, you know what, there's a reason, there's a benefit to saying, okay, all these regulatory use cases should be on R6. And then that way they're all, the whole end-to-end flow is on the same platform. Then, it's better that we make that decision sooner rather than later. And then we make the move. Because they're not going to be happy. Like vendors and regulators are not going to be happy if, they got to set up a FHIR server for one thing, and then they got to have a different server with a different setup for, clinical trials, or, one document's R5, another document's, R6, and I got to set up different tools and different profiles for different things, and I have to have a different way of doing validation. That will make implementation difficult and make people pretty annoyed. So I think we should try our best to be as consistent as we can when operating in this space.
Thank you for that explanation. I believe Hugh has his hand up. So does... No. Okay.
You're muted.
I'll let Stacey go first.
Maybe we're going the same direction here. Craig, I'm curious, if we're trying to anticipate what version of FHIR regulators are interested in, what sort of proof do we have of that? Are we reading tea leaves? Have there been actual discussions? Is there anything documented? Because I think that is the pushback I get is for my constituents is around, well, you show me where the regulators are saying anything about FHIR. So if there's something
Jordan
that we have,
Jordan has made EPI mandatory. So that's FHIR R5. EMA has just recently released their roadmap, and that roadmap explains the timeline to make EPI mandatory for all drugs authorized in Europe. So that is published and that's online. They've been very public about their development program and their pilots and their intent to make this mandatory. FDA has had several pilots ongoing that they're on hold right now. Malaysia and Thailand have informally stated to their industry associations that they intend to implement EPI. and EPI is R5.
Okay.
So there's numerous regulators have expressed their intent to implement EPI, both formally and informally, and EPI is R5. Apex is R5. The response to questions is R5. The CMC standard is R5.
So regarding the labeling, if you had any link to FDA or EMA around EPI, intentions around EPI that you could share, that would be extremely helpful. And then regarding CMC, are there any regulators? I know there was regulatory input into what the FHIR specification, what the FHIR IG would be. What do we have to point to as far as regulator intention of usage?
There is no formal intentional usage.
Yeah.
That is informal. So that is coming. That's something we've been working on with Panagiotis to develop a strategy that would encompass all use cases all at once, and that we would get regulators to support a strategic move towards FHIR as opposed to cherry picking kind of one by one, document by document. So that's something that's in development.
Thank you. You.
Yeah, so I was on a similar theme, but not exactly the same. I was thinking of it more from a influencing how things work out, because we are at the mercy of the regulators in one sense, but it obviously makes sense to have everybody on a consistent platform, exactly what Craig was saying. R6, when it is released, will be the standard for quite a while to come. I don't expect to see another release of FHIR for maybe 5 years, maybe more than that. So there is an argument that says if there are things that are beneficial for research within R6, it would make sense to make it as easy as possible for people to move to R6 and to adopt that. And so my thought is that a Vulcan-led initiative to make sure that we have R6 versions of all of our implementations would help make that transition to R6 as easy as possible. We can't influence the market directly, but we can certainly make it as easy as possible for people to do that. Mitra?
Yes, so at FDA, we are bypassing R5 and moving to R6. So either R4 for our RWD ongoing pilots, and then because HHS ONC is also skipping R5 and moving to R6, and we are a agency under HHS, so we are doing the same thing. So we are going to move to R6. And on adverse event, actually, we have a project jointly with ONC and NCI on immune-related adverse event. And we are hoping to be able to leverage the Vulcan adverse event profile and the adverse event resource in R6.
Thanks, Mitra. I think Rick was next.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, have you spoken with FHIR Management Group about basically having 3 different versions of FHIR going here? It seems like they'd probably encourage you to go to R6 as well. I certainly would, and maybe consider treating, instead of having R5, maybe look at R4 using backporting, using the cross version extension mechanism. That might be a more viable approach, because I don't think anybody is sticking with R5 as far as I know. You might be the only ones.
And to that point, there's nothing holding us to R5, or at least for my project. I can't speak for anyone else's. There's nothing holding me to R5. So if we all collectively think it's better to go with R6, then I'm on board with that, and I don't mind taking the steps to go forward. So maybe that's up to us to make that call.
Beverly?
Oh, there we go. My mute's going on and off. I was just going to add too, one thing we have to account for is, this is a big change management for companies. When we look at Vulcan, pharma is one of the ones that, haven't yet transformed to FHIR. So in order to do that, I know the messaging within the company and the proof in the pudding has to happen. So we're actually using R5 to make that happen, but it helps with the change management. And, we're making sure the messaging is that we're R5, but ready to move to R6 when it's available. So I think different instances and depending on the stakeholders, we might have to start there just to give us enough lead time to be ready when transformation is there. So I think, managing R5 and then the transition R6 or R4 to R5, depending on what you're doing, is going to be important here.
Thanks, Beverly. Rick, I saw that you had your hand up. Did you change your mind?
Well, I was just briefly going to say it's not true that nobody's using R5. I mean, it's true that most projects are not using R5, and maybe people are going for R4 and then waiting for R6. But in the area that we live in, in the regulatory and bio space, R5 is an important release because it was the first release that includes the product information stuff. So, and that's not perhaps widely known outside of that sphere, but in this space, R5 is widely used, and EMA has several live projects on R5. So, yeah, I mean, they will probably transition to R6 at some point anyway, but it's not true that nobody's using R5. Whether you should target it now is a different question.
Any other questions or comments before we move on to the next slide?
Just a quick comment that I think it was Rick, or somebody else made a comment about having different releases. Also, keep in mind that these projects have been going on and for years. So Adverse Events, I believe it was published 2 years ago, for example. No, actually 3 years ago. So that's why you have R4 and R5. So it's not like we are working on it actively, all 8 projects, and we just decided this year to go on R4. They are data projects that happen at different timings, and at that time that was the release that was available. So just want to make that clear. Okay. So if there's no other comments, I'll move on to the next slide. Oh, perfect.
Sorry, Filippo, just before I move on, and I've got to drop soon. Whatever we're going to do, we need to make a decision quickly. So if anyone seriously wants to consider this moving to R6 together, then let's make that decision fast, like as in the next month. Otherwise, let's agree to just keep going as we are.
Yeah, we're gonna schedule another internal meeting. We'll also invite Mike, which wasn't able to attend today's call, and continue our discussion. So you'll be there, Craig, I'm sure.
So Craig, I think to your point, it'd be great for us to kind of sit here and figure out what are the disadvantages of not moving forward to the next further releases, or what are the advantages to staying where we're at, so forth. We need, but I agree. I think we've got to come up with a solid plan and a rationale for that.
Or
yeah,
maybe
sounds good.
Or
and
at
maybe
least
what we can
timeline.
do.
So if we are on R5, we can prep for R6. So when the IG would be approved, and kind of reverse engineer the timeline as well.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what we can do ahead of that meeting, Filippo, is if we can each of us just review do a quick impact analysis on our projects and say, to Jose's point, what is the impact, if any? Yeah.
Yep.
And then we could arrive at that meeting and say, okay, well, here's what it means for each project, and we can look at the overall impact. Does that work?
Yeah, I think we should, especially on the Apex project. As you recall, Craig, it wasn't quite straightforward to get subscriptions to work. So I think that might be our biggest hurdle. How does R6 handle subscriptions, and how easy it is to move to that, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Unless there's any other
Davira has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
So I apologize for being late. I'm glad that we're having this discussion. The one thing I don't know if you all discussed before, and I like the suggestion about doing an impact analysis, is all of that is all very necessary, but I think it assumes that there's unlimited resources to accommodate all of that. So we have worked really hard to get our current scope of work identified and what we're going to be doing, in this year. So I just want to make sure while we're doing all of this, thinking and alignment, to also think about, and so just exactly how is that work, going to be accommodated resource wise, whether that be budget or whether that be in kind hours, etc.
Yeah, I
Totally
think that's
agree.
part of the whole impact analysis, DeBerry. You're absolutely right. I mean, there's a monetary cost in this. There's an opportunity cost. There
Right.
is, all that stuff needs to be factored in.
And I know everybody on the calls, very well intended and intelligent. I just wanted to make sure someone brought it up.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging that. Thank you.
Okay. So next we have project updates. So this month was actually quite the month for the balloting. We had both SOA, schedule of activities, and UDP that went through ballot, and we had some updates for those two projects. We're actually starting with, I'll get to them when we get there, but we were very active with the balloting, or getting ready for ballot, I should say. So let's start with Apex first. We have our Happy FHIR server that it's been set up from the Vulcan side, and it is functional. We've also addressed the concern of how to clean the data as we test. We do our testing scenarios, and that also works pretty well. At the moment, the team is developing the sample data for the use cases that we're going to be using at the May event for testing. The event at the moment, we are aiming early May. It's going to be a kind of a live testing demo event. It will be open, and we intend to put the link on the Vulcan website so you can register for the event ahead of time. We're also working on that, the details about the timing and the logistics. So hopefully soon you'll see the ad on the website, and we're also going to distribute it through the listserv, so you'll get notified. On FHIR Tuomap, we actually resolved the tickets with BRNR yesterday. Those were the ballot tickets from September. We did a block voting, passed yesterday, as you can see. So to the next step, we're going to be working on kind of completing the IG just to see if I don't believe there is any other updates we need to make. I think we're ready. So I believe the next step that was discussed yesterday, I have to check my notes, it just happened at the end of the day, but was to come back to BRNR and try to do the steps for the publishing of the IG. And this is for the for informational ballot status of FHIR Tuomap. The next stage will be to go to STU, and that's the one that we're working on, and the one that Davira was alluding to, that it's already been approved. And we already scoped it out, and the intent was to move with FHIR Release 5, so we have to make sure that we take that into consideration. We're still looking, and I think we're going to be talking about this. I believe we have a meeting this Friday. We still had some open discussions on potential use cases to include in the IG. We had cases from life sciences, gender, and microservices. Kind of a last call to see if there's something else we're missing that should be included into that IG. So if you'd like to attend those calls, look for, on the HL7 calendar of events. You'll see the link to join, or email me and I'll send you the invite. Phenomics Exchange, we just need to implement the dispositions. We finalized the ballot comments, and we just need to implement those dispositions with just, I believe it's just 2 or 3 comments. And then we will be bringing it back to the Clinical Interoperability Council, or CIC, for their final content review and approval. And after that, we're also going to be taking the publishing steps for the IG. The next phase of this project is to look at the use cases for a potential new IG, which we're aiming to be STU level. Here is a schedule of activity that I was talking about earlier. It is going to the May ballot, and it was approved by both FMG and TSC. So now it's official. We just have to make a small little addition. We had to add a change log in the IG, which was added. The team is still looking for feedback. So, in this slide, you have the link to the IG that's here. What we're asking for now, to make things easier, you can use this email address to send us your feedback. And as you know, once we enter the official ballot timing, which is April 10th to May 11th, we ask for you to send those feedback using the HL7 ballot desktop, which generates JIRA tickets, and it is the official way to communicate changes. Here is UDP. As I was saying, they also are going for the May ballot. They were approved to go to ballot from the work group and FMG. We're just waiting for TSC's approval. There were some questions about copyright, because we're working together with our friends from Transcelerate and also CDISC. We do have references to, for example, content that is on their website, for example, and we need to make sure that every time we mention their names, we have the proper disclaimers. Some of the things we've done is we've added a legal section where we made it a bit more clear about where those disclaimers are. We've also worked on the title, the name. We had some discussions. As you know, the name has been updated to Clinical Study Protocol, also to make us follow what our EMA and regulators calling the projects. For example, EMA is calling a Clinical Study Protocol template. It's not specific to a trial. It goes across different studies. So we're trying to keep it broad, which matches our scope of the project. And what we're doing is we're adding on the top of the IG a description of that, and we're asking our balloters to provide feedback if they agree with the name Clinical Study Protocol, or they believe we should perhaps use Clinical Trial Protocol. That was another option that somebody kind of put out there. So that's part of the IG description, and we look for your feedback once we enter ballot. Similar to SOA, here you have the link to the IG. You can send your comment via email again. They also have their own specific email for now. And then when we enter the ballot, once we are approved by TSC, you can submit your ballot comments using the ballot desktop. The project is also part of the May Connectathon, which we're going to be talking next. And it's pretty exciting because part of the Connectathon, we're going to have EMA with us, and they're going to be testing the IG against their requirements to kind of give us the final approval that the IG is following their requirements and everything looks good. And we're also going to be conducting cross-track testing scenarios with EBM. Okay, last project where we have some updates. That's EPI. This just recently, Craig added some new templates and CSS to the IG. actually looked very good. It's very modern and intuitive interface. We're not mandating anyone to use them, but it's very useful. And the information is right there on the IG. They can easily download it and to adopt it. And we're also working on creating the mapping document to map the labels to FHIR resources, and at the same time verifying that that content has a house within the granular FHIR resources. I believe that was the last update that I had on projects. Do we have any questions or? Okay, if not, our next topic is actually a reminder on the May Connectathon and the ballot, and Hugh will give us an update about that.
Okay, thank you. So the Connectathon is the first 2 days of the working group meeting in Rotterdam. So that's the 16th, 17th, Saturday and Sunday. We have particularly the UDP track that I would remind you about. There are others there, obviously, but the UDP is the one I'm concerned about. There's a couple of links on the bottom of this slide. One is on the left, is there to take you to the registration page. The early bird registration ends at the end of this week, so it's worth getting in before that ends. The sorry, the link on the right there is to the preview meeting. This is essentially the kickoff meeting that we're required to produce, but we wanted to talk about UDP and what we're setting out to do within the track somewhat earlier than we do usually, to give people time to think about it, get themselves organised to attend. Filippo's already talked about the content of it, but just to reiterate, the key things are going back over the IG content just to make sure that we've checked everything through, that things are working. We're getting a much better set of examples. We have content that we've worked through before that we will check through again. But we also want to repeat the success we had in January of people bringing their own protocol. So please, if you possibly can, bring your own protocol. If you can't attend the Connectathon, but you've got a protocol you'd like to see going through it, then we can take that. If you want to send that in advance, we can give that a try and see how well it goes. It's the best way of checking that we've covered all the bases, is to keep putting real protocols through and see what happens. The other thing that we're looking at is where people have got their own tools for doing things. So whether that's tools for taking in a protocol and converting it into the FHIR structure, whether it's making use of AI content to generate variants and the structure of the protocol, or whether it's taking what's on the FHIR server and generating the output from it. All of those things are useful, and it will be good to be trying out other tools and different ways of doing things. It's all part of building the base of experience and content that we've got. So please sign up for the Connectathon. As I say, the early bird period ends at the end of this week, but if you miss the early bird, you can sign up right up until the Connectathon itself. I think that's it on Connectathon.
And a quick reminder, we did have our preview kickoff meeting for the UDP project already. And if you missed that, there is the link at the right bottom of the screen here. You can review that. It brings you right to YouTube, where we posted a recording of that meeting.
So, was there a slide about the ballot? Yes, so two things going through to the ballot. Schedule of activities that Jeff was mentioning, UDP that I've talked about. Same as Filippo was saying earlier, there's a link to Jira for the proper thing, and how you actually get access to Jira. But as ever, if you've got difficulty in getting through that process, we're always interested in comments via that UDP-ballot or SOA-ballot HL7vulcan.org email addresses. The sign-up period, you've got, I think, one more day in which to sign up for the ballot, and then the ballot itself will open in 2 days' time and run for a month. So please take a look at these ballots. The comments are useful. We have gone through every one of those comments and we do take notice of them. So that's it. Thank you.
Yes, and if you unfortunately cannot attend the ballot, you're not in the ballot pool, please do submit your comments via the email. We do take a look at them, and we actually can open tickets for you. So don't be shy. We love to hear from you, so send us your comments.
Okay, we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a comment or a request of this group, if I could.
Sure.
So one of the things that we've got on our agenda for this year with the FHIR to OMOP IG is to rally our implementers and adopters, and then we're working toward the Connectathon, a virtual Connectathon, probably midsummer sometime. So I just wanted to reach out to this group. If there are folks that are, we're looking for our implementers. We've got a couple that are in the call, but I think we could use a couple more. We could use a full gaggle, if you will. So just want to send out the call if there's folks that are doing any FHIR to OMOP implementation work in your organization, and you would be willing to engage with us with regards to the testing part of the IG activities this year by doing, a little implementation work with us, we would appreciate it. Come to the call this Friday or reach out to myself or Filippo if there's a way that you or somebody in your organization could engage with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Devira.
And just as a last reminder, if you want to get involved with any of our projects, I just remind you how to do that. If you go to our website, here we go, HL7 Vulcan. So go under the Our Projects header, and you can click on any of the projects, for example, FHIR to OMOP, and just follow the blue link. We have a blue link at the top, subscribe, and at the bottom again. All we need from you is your name and email. Hit submit, and we'll add you to the project, to the specific project, and you'll get reminders of when we're meeting. So thanks again.
All right, if there's no other questions, we thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again next time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.